Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. I am Chad Lyons, and I'm joined by my wife, Megan, and we run Epoet Digital Services.
Before we get into how to optimize your websites for search engines, let's take a brief moment to talk about how search engines work. A search engine is basically a big database of websites. When you type a search term into Google, for example, it searches its database and returns results that match your search term. Now there's two technical details to point out regarding this architecture. First, in order for websites to be included in the search results, it must already be in the database. Second, search engines use programs called bots, crawlers, or spiders to find new websites and add them to the database.
So why is all of that important? Because there are actually 4 things that you can do to ensure that your page is being crawled by those programs and being added to search engine indexes. 1, you need to know the words that people are using when looking for your service, and you need to have those keywords in the primary places on your website, such as headings, links, alt image texts, etc. 2, your site's layout should be hierarchical, logical, and organized so that it's easier for those programs to crawl. 3rd, search engines should be able to determine the context of your website based on your headings, content, links, etc. For example, rather than having a link that says click here, you might say something like, click here to learn more about the benefits of the service you provide. And 4, you should have a document called sitemap.xml. This file, properly formatted, acts as an easily searchable and indexable map of your website. So let's take a quick minute to discuss keywords. Keywords are the words that people use to type into a search engine to find what they're looking for. When deciding which keywords to focus on, realize that there are 2 types of keywords. Short-tail keywords are those that are extremely popular and are used often. They're pretty vague, and getting a high ranking with those keywords is going to be very difficult. For example, let's say you're looking for a doctor. If you go into Google and type in healthcare, you're going to get results on everything from healthcare policy to health insurance to your local optometrist. Then there's long-tail keywords. These, on the other hand, are much more specific. They are used much less often, but that has 3 great benefits for you. First, there's less competition to rank in those keywords. Second, these keywords are much more relevant to what people are actually looking for. And third, because they're more relevant, they also have a much higher conversion rate. An example of a long-tail keyword could be best optometrist in South Salt Lake.
Another thing to understand about keywords is the best keyword may not be obvious to you. Why? Because you have the insight into terminology and details of your expertise. Your patient isn't going to do a Google search for preauricular pit. They're going to Google, what's the hole at the top of my daughter's ear? The trick is to use keywords that capture the intent of your patients, rather than what might be technically correct.
Okay, so now that we understand how search engines work, what keywords are, and how to choose them, we can finally get into the nitty-gritty of applying that knowledge to your organization's website. And this is surprisingly simple. Once you've decided on your keywords, you want to put them in the parts of your site that search engine bots deem most relevant. These are things such as your page titles, your URL slugs. Oh, okay, so what's a URL slug? Well, let's say your website is called jjmedical.com and you have a services page. Your URL slug then might be /services, as in jjmedical.com/services. You also want to include your keyword in your headings and headlines, links, image alt text, and body text.
What are links? They are references back to your website from another website. Sites that have a lot of links back to them are prioritized by search engines. And as if it's not complicated enough, not all links are created equal. Having a link to your website show up on the New York Times website, for example, is much more valuable than one from your brother-in-law's Game of Thrones fan page. So how do you get high-quality links? Well, there's 2 strategies we're going to give you. And keep in mind, the strategies that you use should be specific to your organization and even specific to your clients. But our goal here is to get you started.
First, some sources of high-quality links include things like editorial sites. Think news sites or high-quality, popular blog sites. Aggregation sites are good as well. Healthcare-specific sources are extremely valuable. Publications, specialty groups, etc. Another good source are directories. Now, having said that, not all directories were created equal either. Healthcare-specific and especially local directories are valuable. However, there are low-quality directories, basically just long lists of links that are trash and can actually hurt your search engine optimization. A lot of folks try to sell links, 1,000 links for $500, that sort of thing. That's what they're selling. It might give you a temporary boost in the beginning, but long-term, it's a bad strategy. Don't fall for it. Social media's posts are another good source for links. They're not as valuable as some other link sources, but they help, and they're relatively easy to get. If you have a social media campaign, then you can be putting links to your website out there pretty consistently. That has the dual benefit of driving traffic to your site and improving your SEO. The last thing we'll mention has to do with your content. Again, we're going to be going over this in more detail later, but you should be creating and distributing valuable content on a regular basis. This is a long-term and highly rewarding strategy.
So how can you get started? First things first, make sure that you're listed in relevant directories. You need to claim your practice in places like Google My Business, Yelp, Yellow Pages, etc. It's also worth getting listed in the Better Business Bureau, your local Chamber of Commerce, and any other local business listing sites. You can also reach out to other healthcare-specific sites or that serve the same target market as you do, and offer to provide guest posts or other content in exchange for a link back to your website. Again, content is a big part of this. The more high-quality content you have, the better.
An often overlooked but very powerful part of your SEO strategy is maintaining a good online reputation. I'm going to share some statistics with you. 90% of consumers in the last year used the internet to find a local organization. 82% of customers read online reviews for local organizations. 85% of people trust online reviews as much as a personal recommendation. Think about that. That's significant because word of mouth is one of the most powerful marketing tools you have. When people start talking about your practice in a positive way and sharing their experiences with their friends, that's powerful. So think about that 85% statistic. A lot of people are reading reviews about your organization, and the vast majority of those people trust those reviews. And it behooves you to at least have some insight into your online reputation, and better yet, to have some control over it. So moving on, 87% of those who read online reviews also read the organization's response. That's a part of what I mean about having some control over it. You can take a proactive stance on this, and we'll get more into that in just a second. The last statistic I wanted to share is that only 53% of people would consider using an organization that has less than 4 stars. So take a look at your reviews and see where you are. If you have a high number of reviews and your average reviews are between 4 and 5 stars, then you're in a good spot. If not, then there's some work you can do. And if you're under 4 stars, then you need to start immediately. Can you imagine going to a plastic surgeon that had only like 3.5 stars? Like, whoa, what happened in those other low reviews? No way, you're going to the 5-star place. The point of this is that having an exceptional online reputation sets you above the competition. And as I said, you have some control over that. So let's talk about how you can increase your positive reviews.
We're going to go over this at a pretty high level, but this can at least get you started. We'll take turns going over these points.
The first thing is, foremost and always provide excellent customer service. Some people just want to complain, but 9 times out of 10, a negative review can be avoided simply by having a good bedside manner and providing an overall superior patient experience. I say simply as if it's easy. I know it's not. But as business owners, that's really what you are, right? That's what we signed up for, and we have to deliver on that promise to the best of our ability.
The next thing is to have a plan. Your plan should be made up of 4 elements. Specific goals, such as raise your reviews by 1 full star within the next 90 days, the activities you're going to do to reach that goal, a schedule of when those activities are going to be performed, and finally, the metrics you're going to use to assess your progress, presumably the most important of which will be your actual review count and average rating.
Next, you need to know where your organization is being reviewed. Google, Facebook, and Yelp are some of the obvious ones, but there are others as well. I'll give you a quick list real quick. You've got your major platforms that I mentioned, local business review sites, online directory, and your healthcare-specific sites. Now let me say this. I've seen some doctors sporting 4 and 5-star reviews on health grades, but being the 2s or 3s on Google. So let me ask you, where do you think that 90% of your traffic is looking first? You need to have high reviews everywhere you're listed, And you need to prioritize those places where you're most likely to be seen first, because that first impression will stick.
And once you know where you're being reviewed, you can begin monitoring your reputation. You do this by watching your reputation and watching the sentiment trends around it, and also by watching your competitors. There's a few things you can learn from doing that. You can see what they're doing better than you, and you can also see where they're lacking and how you can outshine them.
So let's talk about what to do when you do have negative reviews, because chances are you'll have some. The first thing is to always respond with kindness. I bet you've seen some of the comedic examples of witty replies some companies make. That's all good and well, but it's the exception, not the rule. I probably couldn't pull it off, and chances are, neither can you. Instead, respond with kindness. Be professional and respect your patient's feelings. Also, announce your intention to contact them privately. Then you actually have to go through with it. Contact the patient in private and try to get the issue resolved. If you absolutely cannot get the issue resolved, then it is what it is. However, the fact that you care enough to reach out by itself is sometimes enough. And if you can get the patient's issue resolved, there's absolutely nothing wrong with asking them to amend the review. Lastly, if you are working with a team or have a social media manager, for example, empower them to resolve the issue. As a healthcare professional, you probably have much better things to do with your time than to respond personally to every patient complaint.
The last piece of advice for increasing your positive reviews is to ask for them. There are several opportunities to ask. When they're in the office, when they're on your website, in follow-up emails, in satisfaction surveys, etc. One of my favorite ways that work especially well is as a follow-up email. You can ask if they had a good experience, yes or no. Then, if they click no, you route them to a customer form that asks for their specific feedback so that you can resolve their issue. If they click yes, then you can ask them to leave a review and route them to your Google review page.
If there's anything you'd like to learn more about, anything that you feel like maybe we didn't go deep enough or even overlooked, please reach out to us. And of course, if you feel like we can help you in your online marketing efforts, we would love to hear from you. You can reach us at hello@epoet.com or via the links below. Take care.